Here we go, YouTube. We got another video responding to Sargon, and this one's going to be a lot of fun because Sargon's going to claim a lot of offense to the idea of taking a knee in protest, and we're going to look at as he comes out in defense of Dominic Raab, who's a politician in the UK who made a comment about how he doesn't, he's a conservative politician, doesn't like the taking the knee. So we'll go and cover this here. It should be interesting.
I don't support Black Lives Matter for many different reasons, and one of those reasons is the format and demonstration of their activism. Not particularly in the form of taking a knee, although I have my own reasons for not really approving of this, but I do think these people should be free to make that statement if they want. However, you have to understand whenever you make one of these kind of statements, you're making it from your own cultural perspective. You're projecting it forward from an already existing history on your part. It may well come into conflict with someone else's cultural understanding of the world, and the thing you might be doing might be in some way offensive to those people. And if you're not sensitive to that, you can find yourself in positions where you don't really understand why people are objecting to what you're saying.
And this is where Carl is going to claim that he's offended by people taking a knee, right? It's going to be really funny because he's going to mix up two different idioms here, taking a knee and bending the knee. And he's going to conflate those two as the same thing when they're not the same thing or the same idea, right? He's the one that'll claim context and all that other stuff is very, very important, and nuance and all this other stuff here, and then he's going to throw it all out the window to conflate taking a knee to bending the knee.
And you're assuming that they have to be the villains of your particular little drama, even if they've got absolutely nothing to do with it. I say this because the Black Lives Matter taking a knee has arrived in the UK, and UK sports as well, where it is conquering everywhere it goes. No one has a single objection to this, and I find it really, really insufferable. Because in my culture,
I mean, sounds like you have an objection to this. I mean, you call it insufferable. But now he's going to come and explain the culture of why taking a knee is so offensive. And you're going to laugh. It's going to be funny.
in English culture, taking a knee has meaning. It's what a feudal vassal does to the lord. It's where in Anglo-Saxon times the lord would give him a sword and rings, the ring giver. This is where Lord of the Rings comes from. It all comes out of Anglo-Saxon folklore and mythology and the society that existed at the time. We're talking over 1,000 years ago now. But the idea of taking a knee has remained as a persistent one because it has meaning behind it. You're putting yourself on a lower level to the person to whom you are pledging your service.
So you're right here is the conflation between taking a knee and bending the knee, right? This in this situation that he's describing would be bending the knee to someone above you and before you, but taking the knee has not, it doesn't have that connotation, and it hasn't had that connotation, right? He's conflating the two, right? And so this is the guy that'll get all up in arms over, like the OK sign and other things like that, and how you have to understand the context, whether or not it's racist or anything like that.
You are saying you are going to become one of the king's men. You are one of the Lord's men. They are the person who will now tell you what to do, and they are the person you will serve. This naturally has a long-standing history throughout medieval feudal Europe, until we come to the modern post-Enlightenment era, where taking a knee and pledging allegiance has become something that is obviously deeply archaic, because it's not the kind of society we live in now. After the sort of liberal revolutions of the 18th century, you find that taking a knee is antithetical to the idea of every man being his own sovereign. Bending the knee is totally antithetical to the idea of a society of equals.
I'll agree bending the knee is, but taking a knee isn't, right? Taking a knee can be done for all sorts of different reasons, right? So one of the one of the reasons that it does is for prayer, right? You'll take a knee to pray, but in the sports context and all that other stuff, and which is worldwide, it's a phenomenon all over the world. It's not just an American thing, and ooh, it's super offensive here, right? You take a knee, for a breather or whatever. So if you schedule, I know, at least in America, how they schedule soccer practices or football practices, comparable to how we schedule our football practices. You'll have time minutes, in college and stuff. So we had, you'd have like a 10-minute segment that you'd go work on. You drill something here. You'd have 10-minute segment to go drill something here. And then over the course of, the 2-3 hour practices, you'd have a couple of 5-minute segments that you could take a knee, take a breather, get a blow, get some water, right? Things like that. So it's a symbol of rest. It's a thing like that. Other things it's done for, and there's some etymology blogs and stuff like that have tried to trace some of the history of it. It can be done in remembrance, which is where what Kaepernick has done, or how it was suggested to him by the former Marine, to show a more respectful protest against the flag and against the injustice and stuff like that, is that you take the knee in remembrance, right? So you do that at you take the moment of silence or anything like that, and usually it often come with a prayer too. So you go before a game or something, or if you want to do something big for it, you take the knee. There'd be a moment of silence to pray, and you're doing it in remembrance of someone. So that's what it's here. But what I find funny is that sporting events and any other events that do the singing the national anthem, you're required to stand, right? And so when they take the knee at that time, they're not bending the knee to the authority, right? To like Carl would propose. I wish his second channel was still around, because he doesn't have, from the time when Kaepernick started doing this, he doesn't have videos on that on his original Sargon of Akkad channel, but I think they might have been on his Symposium channel, if I remember correctly. But I think it was called the Symposium, or I forget what it was. But that got yeeted in 2017 after the Destiny Jontron debate, when he clipped a couple of segments from Destiny's stream and just uploaded them without being transformative, and Destiny DMCA'd his channel into oblivion. So those videos don't exist anymore. So we can get his ideas at the time, or at least they don't exist publicly. So it'd be interesting to see his argument back then and compare it to what he's doing here. But what I was getting at that point, yeah, I was getting at the the bending the knee, so to speak, would be standing for the flag, standing for the national anthem, and all that other stuff. So the taking the knee in that situation would be the act of defiance, that and things like that. That he's trying to claim it's the opposite. Oh, you're and he's trying to conflate taking the knee to bending the knee, right?
That's precisely the opposite point of it. You bend the knee in order to demonstrate to your feudal lord that they have a higher social position to you that you recognize and are prepared to enforce in the case of armed retainers with your life. When every man is his own.
And if you stand for the national anthem, you're bending the knee to the country, right? You're doing all that other stuff, right? Everything that you're complaining about with the former protests here is what you would willingly do and support, for something like that, for that show of patriotism, right? You'd be bending the knee in face of things like injustice and stuff.
Own sovereign, the point is that you don't pledge allegiance to a king, you pledge allegiance to something like a constitution. Now, in Britain, we have the worst of all worlds because it's a very old country and these traditions carry on, and so Englishmen must pledge allegiance to the king still because it's an inherited tradition, and that's the way this country works, god damn it. But anyway, you should.
Yeah, and it's been almost 350 years, or 360 years since you're required to bend your knee in fealty to the king, right? So you still have some tradition and stuff here before it was mandated by law. So the thing you're talking about was, so far in the past that it's not important at all to you, right? This is you just being disingenuous about what offends you so that you can defend what'll be the shitty take that Dominic Raab made.
Really be taking away from this that bending the knee to an Englishman, or to any other Brit, really, is something that is culturally outside of their nature because of the history of the country and the regressive political systems that from the past we have left behind, which is why when Dominic Raab went on Julia Hartley-Brewer's breakfast radio show this morning, he said,
just as after watching the football last night, would you take a knee if you were asked to?
Do you know what? I understand this sense of frustration and restlessness which is driving the Black Lives Matters movement. I've got to say on this taking the knee thing, which I don't know, maybe it's got a broader history, but seems to be taken from the Game of Thrones, feels to me like a symbol of subjugation and subordination rather than one of liberation and emancipation. But I understand people feel differently about it, so it's a matter of personal choice.
So would you or wouldn't you do it?
Take the knee for two people, the Queen and the Missus, when I asked her to marry me.
it's no wonder.
Ooh boy. So that goes against Carl's ideology. He's not going to talk about taking the knee for the woman, right? He'll talk about it a little bit here on how he didn't kneel for his wife and stuff like that when he proposed. But no. So his thing isn't we got a long-standing feudal cultural thing or anything like that. It's they just took it from Game of Thrones, right? And no other broader history that you don't take a knee for all sorts of things in sport that had nothing to do with declaring fealty. Right, and it's something pretty universal, right? You can find pictures of, athletes and soldiers and all that stuff taking the knee all around the world. So it's not this great offense against Carl's culture.
I wonder that Dominic Raab thinks that taking the knee feels like a symbol of subjugation and subordination, because in English culture, it is. It's absolutely that. That's exactly what it means. That's precisely the point. You are literally subjugating yourself as a vassal to a lord to be their subordinate. That's precisely the point. And so demanding that people take the knee in English culture is really quite offensive. Browbeating people. And
so nobody's demanding that he takes the knee, right? And like I said, it's a conflation between the idea of taking a knee and then bending the knee in the sense that he's doing, and he's flipped between them, as we've seen, right? Flipped between the idioms, and he's trying to conflate them. But no, it's not what he's describing here. Taking a knee out for something is not offensive, right? So it would be offensive. I have no idea if Carl does rock climbing, but I don't know if he's ever done any team sports stuff or anything like that, or even any sports in general, right? You take a knee all the goddamn time to get a blow, to get a breather. Right, when you relax and you do all that other stuff, right? And so is every time that they take a knee for that specific situation then offensive to them because oh no, we're subjugating ourselves to what? Our exhaustion, right? We're subjugating ourselves to exhaustion, and Carl can't have it. Can't have any of that.
Saying no, you have to take a knee for some political cause over an event that happened in another country that doesn't reflect the reality of this country is wild, frankly. I can't even imagine where I think I could gain the moral authority from to demand that one of my peers, one of my equals, kneels for a political movement. Any political movement that required me to kneel for it would be one that I would reject out of hand, on the face of it. No way am I kneeling for you. As Dominic Raab says.
So, nobody's demanding and nobody's requiring that he take a knee, right? That doesn't mean he can't make himself look like an absolute ass with this argument here, and then Carl's going to run disingenuously to try to pretend that he was actually offended by this.
You kneel for your wife when you ask her to marry her, which I didn't, incidentally, and you kneel for the Queen because it's to the Queen of the United Kingdom that you pledge allegiance, not Black Lives Matter.
And so, I was kind of bringing this idea up earlier. I don't know if I quite got it across, but when I stand in America, or I imagine is the same, might be similar in the UK. I don't know. I'd have to ask. And kids, I don't know if they have to pledge allegiance to the Union Jack or whatever every morning. But, the difference, so if I stand up for the flag to pledge allegiance to it, right? That's the same as bending the knee. That should be super offensive. You can't ever bend the knee to political movements or political things or anything like that, like Carl just said, right? But he doesn't find that offensive to stand for all that other stuff. He finds it offensive when you take a knee against the injustices that your country engages in, right? And you make that protest against those countries, right? And so I just find it funny that somebody that's on the side that wants everybody to stand at attention for the flag and do all that other stuff, who's going to side with those people as being right over the protesters for Black Lives Matter, is going to find that, try to twist it so that it's actually offensive to take the knee because, ooh, you're subjugating yourself to some political movement. And it's not, you're taking a knee to support a teammate, doing something in solidarity with somebody else, right?
This wasn't exactly taken well by people like David Lammy. It is not just insulting to the Black Lives Matter movement, it is deeply embarrassing for Dominic Raab. For Dominic Raab to show that he's actually an Englishman at heart. Really, why is that deeply embarrassing? Why would I give a damn if Black Lives Matter has been insulted? The violent movement that has produced something like 20 or 30 deaths now, caused millions in property damage, and is currently tearing apart the fabric of our political system and getting people deplatformed left, right, and centre for merely speaking out about it. Is this really the movement that I am supposed to support? And I am going to be shamed and browbeaten.
So, he's in the UK. I don't care about anything about because he'll try to justify this differently than here. But I'm going to speak to the Americans, right, who are saying some of this weird shit here, and that'll worship like the founding fathers, and there's the whole lot of situation going on with tearing down like Jefferson statues and Washington statues around the nation. And I think Teddy Roosevelt has one there, but if you see the Teddy Roosevelt one, that's a yikeser statue right there, that was standing up. But anyways, Thomas Jefferson lamented the fact that if we weren't having these violent uprisings, right, and Black Lives Matter movement isn't violent anywhere near the level that Carl tries to paint them as, right? There's been some situations that are broken up because of the rioting, and rioting's a lot like a fire, right? You do like a brush fire or something big there, and you lose control of it. It can do damage everywhere else. I prefer they don't do the damages to the businesses, and especially the small businesses and stuff like that. But I mean, that's going to happen when these things turn from protests into riots eventually. But anyways, Jefferson lamented if we would go more than 20 years without some kind of violent insurrection, right? So the big liberty, freedom, and all that other stuff, standing up to government and stuff like that, said we should be having these violent revolutions every 20 years, right? The government will put them down, and he said something along the lines of pardon and pacify them, right? But that these are there to show us what's wrong, and because of the outrage, because of all the things going on with from George Floyd to Breonna Taylor now to what's his name, Rayshard Brooks, I think is his name. We're seeing a lot of change happening here because all this stuff is going about, right? I mean, I don't like everything that's done in the name of these things or the riots and stuff here, but what the point I was gonna kind of ramble off here, but the big point is that the founders and the Constitution, everybody that's like, oh, peacefully, you can't do anything violent, you can't stand up any kind of violent interaction and stuff, but we're the ones that are gonna say, oh, we need our guns to stand up to the tyranny of the government. And then when people stand up to the tyranny of the government, it's like, no, that you can't do it that way. And kind of stuff like that I just find funny. And it's more just, hey, we're gonna do whatever the hell we want in regards to our own personal biases, beliefs, and stuff like that from the conservative side.
And insulted into kneeling for. I don't think so, David. And I think that Dominic did exactly the right thing for saying, well, no, look, this is how I feel about it. It does seem like a symbol of subjection and subordination. I just wish he'd actually linked it to the cultural heritage that he's calling on when he makes that point. Yes, it does. I don't owe Black Lives Matter anything. We're not going back to this. I know that there's probably an aspect of the human condition that desires to have a just master above them rather than their own personal freedom, but I'm not one of those people. I'm not afraid of being my own master. I'm prepared to take the risks. And while I appreciate there are many people who are not, It appears that Dominic Raab shares this ethos with me and most other English people, which I really think it's this desire for self-determination and personal ownership that was actually behind Brexit as well.
So no, this is a lot of what you'd say bollocks in the UK. Black Lives Matter isn't asking to kneel to them or any kind of stuff there, right? They're taking a knee in support and solidarity. It's doing something to show the support with the movement, right? And you're not against these kind of actions, and this is you just trying to pretend you're offended over it. I mean, God, there's 3-4 minutes left in the video. I can't go any further. This is dumb. This is Carl being disingenuous, like he normally is. But I mean, turning it up, maybe not quite to 11, but he's getting close. We'll end that one there.